Hello and welcome to the 163rd edition of Vogan's Global Weather Report, live here from Mark Vogan Weather HQ in Edmonton, Ross-shire. We are seeing a gradual warm-up after what has been a reasonably cold week, it has to be said. We've seen plenty of snow in some places, and other places, most places, have been largely dry and sunny. So how is everybody doing on this Saturday evening? It is the 22nd of November. I did a nice little hill walk there about an hour ago actually. So grabbed a couple of sausage rolls, some coffee, took it up onto the local hill here, Farish, which I've spoken about before. Sat and looked over the lights, looking up at the stars. It was absolutely glorious, it has to be said. A little bit of exercise thrown in for good measure as well. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. What have you been up to today? I would be curious to know what the folks have been saying and doing today. Hello, Mark, watching from Wisconsin, USA. Well, very warm welcome to you. Bori Reacts AI Vlogs. I hope that Bori Reacts AI Vlogs. I hope that is right. But a very warm welcome to you and hello from Scotland. It is good to see you on today's live stream. Good greetings from a little bit closer to home, Darlington, down in England, from Delgas 666. I'm seeing quite a lot of new faces, which is lovely to see. Yeah, warm welcome if you're relatively new to the channel, if you're a new subscriber, if you haven't subscribed, well, be sure to hit that big red button if you don't mind, because it is absolutely free. We are talking about a lot of things: polar vortex, Julian oscillation, impending milder weather. Felt a little bit downhearted, I must admit, yesterday, because I thought to myself, have I made a bit of a boo-boo when it comes to talking about the potential of a cold December? Now remember, up until now, it has been with the caveat potential. I've not been turning around and saying in any shape or form that is what's going to happen, but I've been giving you the parameters out there that would suggest that we have a lot of things to get interested in at the minute anyway. We've got a lot of things going for us. If you're a lover of cold weather like myself, I know quite a lot of people that tune into the channel are a lover of snow and cold. Not everybody likes it. Obviously, it raises the heating bill, for example. It increases the stress, health-wise, physical. You know, it's easy to slip and break something at this time of the year when you've got ice on the pavements or sidewalks, if you will. So, yeah, it is a challenging time as well as it is an exciting time. I love snow. I love cold. It is my favourite time of the year. And I know there is a lot of people out there that would vouch for that as well. Good evening to Kat Yes Tella, 63. Good evening, Mark and Bon. Good evening to Brian Hunt, 216. So, yep, it is good to see people tuning in. Good evening to our moderators as well, Sing Splint and to Paul James. Thanks for tuning in, and also thank you for your ongoing support to the channel, to myself. It is much appreciated. Good evening to Jack Caldwell as well. Good evening to yourself, Weather Elliott as well. Good evening to yourself, and also nearby, next door to where I'm living, we've got William and Catherine McKendry in Allness. William saying, "Hi Mark, how's you? Good reports. Thanks, Wills and Catherine McKendry. Been busy at home and shopping. Catherine doing a 12-hour shift today. Be home around 8 p.m. Thanks. Take care. Certainly hope our work is going well. William, Lindsay is working hard as well this evening as well. I'm going to actually be after the live stream, nipping out, getting a little bit of groceries, and then Lindsay will be finished around 9:30 p.m. all being well if she gets finished on time. So and yes, our second car looks as if it's done. I've had it for the last 13 and a half years. I've owned it since I bought it since it was brand new. And the past couple of days, unfortunately, I've been told that unless I want to spend anywhere from 8 to 1,600 quid on getting it sorted out, I think it's time for to call it a day, unfortunately. So I'm a little bit pains to let that car go, unfortunately. I do have the new one. Lindsay's taken on the older car, and it looks as if it is done, so to speak. So yes, it's just one of those things. Yeah, what can I say? I'm trying to hold back the tears. 13 and a half years is a long time, I would say, to have a car. It's been up and down Land's End to John O'Groats on two separate occasions, up to the north coast, down to the south coast many times, over to Northern Ireland, over to the Western Isles. It's been round the block quite a few times, and yes, the end of an era, I would say, with regards to the old car. So I wanted to ask a question. So when I was coming down the hill from the top of Farish, after having my sausage rolls and coffee, looking over the lights, it was very pleasant indeed. I was thinking to myself, we had the coldest temperature since 2010 for the month of November, minus 12.6 at Tom and Towel, over towards just to the east of the Whiskey Trail. I don't know if that would probably count as Murray, I would say, rather than Granton or Speyside. I'm not entirely sure. But, what's interesting, it really is, I know I keep harping on about this, but this November versus last November couldn't be more similar. We seen record warmth. The only big difference is we didn't see the excessive rain that we've seen this time around. But we've seen very warm temperatures. France recorded its warmest November day with 29.8 Celsius. Pretty outstanding, actually, when you think about that. Nearly 30 Celsius in the month of November. And then we've flipped completely around. We did have one ice day. We've had several, obviously, sub-freezing temperatures. Our good friend Richard Chalk, good evening to yourself. Thanks for tuning in, my friend. I hope your day has been good. Richard recorded some amazing snow images from the North York Moors back a few days ago. We've seen upwards of 30 centimetres, so a good foot of snow falling in parts of the North York Moors, up into into the Cairngorm and Grampian region, the far northwest, also seeing some significant amounts of snow. I know Paul down in sunny Hampshire was saying that he had picked up some snowfall in that area. I know that there was snow in the London area. There was also snow over in Cornwall. And last November, we seen the coldest temperature for November in the UK since 2010 with a minus 12.4 Celsius. And yet, this time around, we've beaten that coldest since 2010 as well. And what's interesting about that figure of minus 12.6, when you look back at this spreadsheet from Shrine Bruin, it's showing the temperatures for the month of November being the coldest since 2010, but it's the second coldest November night since 2004. So 21 years, and the other morning was the second coldest in that 21-year period. So if you look at this here, this column in particular, this is the month of November, and you can see here a minus 13.2. There's that minus 18 back in December 2010. And if you notice here, in 2016, in November, we hit minus 12.1 at Braemar, minus 12.4 last year at Kinbrace, and then obviously we've seen a minus 12.6. So if you take away the 2010 reading, that was the second, well, essentially the coldest November night since 2004, bar the 2010 reading. I hope that kind of makes sense, but I thought that was quite interesting, actually, the fact that that's quite notable, really. What's also interesting is that station, Tom and Towel. Let's have a quick look then and see where, in case people don't know where Tom and Towel is. What am I looking for? Google Maps. In case people don't know where Tom and Towel is, let's have a quick look, because it's quite interesting when you look at this. Ballindalloch, so it's kind of close to the Ballindalloch area. Let me just close off that. So there's Tomintoul in Google Maps here. So yeah, just to the east of the Speyside area here, so kind of north side of the Cairngorms. They recorded a -5 Celsius back in September, and that ties with the coldest September night of -5. Remember, that particular station recorded -5 in September just gone. That was a tie, I think it was 2020, for the coldest UK temperature for that month, all the way back to 1997. So not only has Tomintoul recorded the coldest November night since 2010, but it ties 2020 with the coldest September night since 1997, which I thought was quite interesting, actually. Yeah, I think it was parts. Richard could probably confirm this, but I'm pretty sure there was villages cut off in the North York Moors with the snow back during the course of the week. We obviously had a northerly, northeasterly kind of airflow. We were seeing convective bands where obviously the air was cold enough, generally -8 to -10 Celsius at 5,000 foot, blown over the generally kind of 6, 7, 8 Celsius waters of the North Seas. So you're actually generating a bit of a sea effect, so to speak. Hence, with a bit of elevation over the North York Moors, we were seeing the enhancement of the snow. It's the same for northern portions of Scotland as well, where you're susceptible, you're in that northerly flow. You've got the increased chance of seeing some decent snowfall. Here at Vogan Weather HQ, we recorded about 4 centimetres, or about an inch, or just over an inch of snow. That lasted about a day and a half, and then we did see 3 millimetres of rain that essentially wiped out that snow. Temperatures here dropped to -5.8, which chilly, but a slight nagging breeze blowing through the majority of the overnight period kept the temperature up. And therefore, I think if we had had the lighter winds with the clear skies, with the snow on the ground, we probably would have seen temperatures exceed what was recorded last November, which was -6.4 Celsius. Let me know what the coldest temperature you have ever experienced. How much snow have you ever seen? Certainly there's memories back to the 1990s when I lived in Fife. Snow, up to your knees. Still got to school, by the way. Schools just seem to just close like that these days. You get an inch of snow on the ground, everybody's calling for a snow day off school, which I think, society's become a bit wimpy in fairness. I don't know if you agree with that, but certainly around here anyway, given that we live in the north of Scotland, it just seems to be that you get a flake of snow and the schools just shut down. I can get the fact that around parts of Aberdeenshire you were seeing the A92, people having to push their cars on that trunk road linking Dundee and Aberdeen. But generally speaking, I think society has become very, very wimpy indeed. So, so good evening to Brian Hunt. If I haven't already, possibly. If I'm repeating myself, I do apologise. -20 Celsius in West Germany. 3 meters of snow drifts, and that was the winter of 78, 79. What a winter that was. I wasn't around at the time, but looking back at video, looking back at some of the stats and some of the highlights from that winter, it really was unbelievable. We've also got O'Sullivan Esther Cleaning. I think that's the right pronunciation. Hi, Mark. Will SSW bring cold weather over Christmas? That is the golden question. We will look at that in today's live stream, and obviously we're going to continue to monitor the behaviour of the SSW. There's a bit of a question mark over the coupling and link up between stratosphere and troposphere. We've got a very favourable Man-Julian oscillation at the moment here, and the problem that you've got is that almost like it's like the two are kind of working against each other rather than working with each other. But we want to see, based on some research that I've looked into over the last few days here, it has to be said that, we had a sun stratospheric warming back in beginning of 2019. and we didn't see the effects of that here in the UK. Remember, there's about 70% chance, so 7 out of 10 winters sees a cold response for the UK after an SSW, and that's generally 14 days or thereabouts after the major sun stratospheric warming takes place. But we've got there's 3 out of 10 winters that don't produce cold. The SSW that was generated back in 2019 didn't have any effects. Obviously, we've got things like 2018 where we've seen an extreme response. Also in 2021, I believe, if memory serves me correctly, we've seen a sudden stratospheric warming. I think it was the beginning of February, and then at the end of February 2021, Braemar recorded -23, which was the coldest since 1995. Around about just prior to the new year, as 1995 was ending. But yeah, 2021, it was the first winter that I was living up here in the north of Scotland. Paul James saying -15 in Blackburn back in 2010. Pretty impressive. I think the coldest I've experienced here in Scotland is -21 Celsius, and that was I went up to Kinbrace that morning with Lindsay, my wife, and the car was reading -20. I think officially the temperature was 22 below zero, and it really was a quite incredible morning. Driving up the A9, and it was -15 right on the coastline, which was pretty crazy stuff. Deep snow-covered ground, and that was the response of a major sudden stratospheric warming that took place. I'm pretty sure it was the beginning of February 2021. Now, it's every couple of years you typically see an SSW, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of response we get from this. There's a few folks here tuning in from the United States. Good evening to you. We've got Bori Reacts AI vlogs. Whereabouts in the United States are you? I would be curious to know. Wisconsin. Sorry, I've just literally seen it there now. So yeah, and you folks may get an Arctic blast coming up as we move into the month of December. It looks as if through the first half of December, certainly for here in Western Europe, I'm not overly convinced that we're going to see anything particularly cold. But remember the timing of everything. What you want to do is you want to get that MJO as strong as possible to then create a heat flux from troposphere up into the stratosphere, and this continued weakening, warming of the polar vortex within the stratosphere. That's what we want to see, and it's going to be interesting to watch. Remember, the thing is here, folks, that we could have a very powerful polar vortex. We could have no signs of any particular cold weather as we head into the month of December. It is an exciting time. People get a little bit overexcited about individual model runs. There is a lot of interesting things going on at the moment here that is going to excite a lot of people if you like snow and cold. So let's just chill out, calm down a little bit as well, because I do get the comments that are quite clearly people that just want to see you fail with a forecast. I've not issued any forecast yet. I'm basically building the ideas, and that will get released officially tomorrow next week. So Sunday, 30th of November at 4 p.m. I hope you can join me for the official release of the 25-26 winter forecast. So I'm excited to bring that to everybody next Sunday afternoon. So Andrew Reynolds, good evening to yourself. -25 in Sweden, south of Stockholm. Visiting my uncle back in 2011. I think, incidentally, by the way, talking about Sweden, that SSW that occurred back at the beginning of 2019, we did see some incredible cold up in Scandinavia. Yeah, we had a little bit of chill in the UK and Ireland. This was actually discussed in the live stream yesterday on the Met Office Live, and Aidan actually explained that pretty well with regards to SSW. Some affect us, some don't. You've got that 70% chance of increased cold further down the road. Whether the winds reverse or not, I could be mistaken, but that could be slightly material with regards to a reversal, which a reversal would mean that it constitutes a major sudden stratospheric warming. If we get close to zero and then the winds start to pick up in a westerly fashion again, remember, the stronger the winds around the polar vortex, the stronger the polar vortex, the weaker the winds, the greater chance that you have the release of cold from the pole down into the middle latitude pattern. This has been something I've been saying. Not only do you have to have the coupling of the stratosphere and the troposphere, but also where does that cold go? Now, we could have the block over the UK sending the cold south to the west and also south to the east of the UK and Ireland. It all depends on the positioning of blocking over a given area. But yeah, it's exciting times. We're heading into the month of December. It's getting closer to the festive period. We shall wait and see what happens. It'll be interesting to see. William saying, "Hi Mark, I remember the 3 to 4 feet of snow in 78 and a temperature of minus 18 Celsius. Yep, and interestingly enough, back in 2021, up at 10, there was the second coldest temperature on record up at 10, which is about the 18 miles roughly to the north of here. I know Loch Lascarna can get down to minus 18, minus 20 Celsius down in Aviemore, about an hour south of here. You're kind of talking, even back a couple of days ago, Lee at Highland Weather was recording temperatures of minus 17, minus 18. A couple of frost hollows on that north side of the Cairngorm Plateau, where you've got snow-covered ground and you've got optimum conditions where you've got these kind of large kind of plateaus with gently sloping hills surrounding. That means that the cold can drain into these low-lying areas overnight and particularly cold spots, it has to be said. Paul saying January 1979 was a great month for snow, and obviously 2009, 2010 long lives in the memory. Remember another thing as well, by the way, that the 1990s had a long spell of no winter. And then came 2008, 2009, 10, 11. There was a period there of notably cold winters. Now, whether that coincided, which I think it probably did to an extent, coinciding with a solar minimum, we're obviously coming off the back of a solar maximum. We've got La Nina that looks as if it's going to transition to El Nino as we move into next year. Be interesting to see how that weakens over the course of the winter season, how the water temperatures change over the equatorial Pacific, what influence that has on, say, for example, the Mann-Julian oscillation. MJO tries to go to where the warmest waters are, and, you know, I was kind of thinking along the lines of perhaps it's attracted to the maritime continent or Indonesia. If that's the case, that's one negative element in terms of cold weather here in Western Europe here, but there's a lot of different aspects to look at. Easterly QBO, La Nina, that tends to lead to colder early portions of winter, perhaps milder, stronger polar vortexes during the second half of the winter. Who knows? We'll wait and see, but I certainly will provide the answers in my opinion, based on all the parameters in a fair and balanced way. You know, if I think it's going to be a mild winter, I'll say it's going to be a mild winter, rather than it being a case of you're kind of building this narrative that's based upon what you want to see rather than actually what I think is going to happen. But yeah, I suppose there is a couple of aspects with regards to what's going on within the stratosphere at the minute that's kind of slightly disappointed me, I suppose. You know, and a slight lack of true understanding of what's going on up in the stratosphere. It's easy to kind of jump on something and go, oh, this is going to happen or that's going to happen. You know, but you've got a strong phase 6 going into phase 7 of the MJO. That's optimum for high latitude blocking for a negative NAO, combined with La Nina, combined with East QBO, combined with the negative IOD. There's a lot of things pointing towards what could be a classic mid to late December cold spell, including Christmas and New Year, by the way. But that being said, you know, there is other aspects to consider as well. I got a super thanks, by the way, during the course of the week. Let me just see here, just to try and refresh my memory. So just bear with me a little second here, because I want to give the person a shout out, because it is always very appreciated when you get that. Yes, it was a friend of the channel, Kevin Barber, 46. So thank you very much to Kevin for the kind super thanks back a couple of days ago. I just wanted to give him a special shout out for that. So anyway, let's crack on then with some of the events that have been taking place globally. Let's quickly look at CDAS 0.5 data through the 22nd of November. Obviously, we did start off the first half of the month largely warmer than average, wetter than average for most of the UK, particularly so England, Wales. Not so much up here across the north, it has to be said. We've turned that around. We'll look at the flip around in just a second. Remember, a week or so ago, we were talking about near 19 Celsius in the London area. We're talking about near 30 Celsius, down in France. And then we seen, it was like flicking a switch to a cold pattern. We obviously had that big contrast between Arctic air coming actually from Siberia over the top of the pole and down into western areas of Europe here. So that was quite interesting. But at the same time that we were transporting, Siberian origin air, albeit it weakened as it crossed over the top of the planet and then down into the UK and Ireland, we had a subtropical flow coming up from the Canaries, from northern Africa, where we're seeing temperatures 35 Celsius and around that period of time in the Canary Islands, Algeria, parts of Morocco. We're seeing temperatures into the 30s in southern Iberia, close to 30 in France, and then into the upper teens in the south of the UK. We had that boundary separating Arctic air over Scotland and subtropical air over the south. Along that boundary, we obviously seen some very significant rainfall in excess of 90 plus millimetres of rainfall within a 24-hour period, 150 plus millimetres over a 72-hour period. Monmouthshire in southeast Wales was the hardest hit area. Then as Claudia moved eastwards, obviously it brought some unusually cool temperatures to the Canaries, and also wet and windy conditions, unseasonably wet and windy conditions to the Canaries. Also, Iberia has been pretty hard hit as well by cool and unsettled weather. A lot of rainfall in parts of Spain and Portugal associated with that as well. That system then moved east. Then down came the Arctic air, and we were all in the cold air. London, for example, going from plus 18 to plus 4 by day. Overnight frosts. We did see a snow even in central London during this period of time, and we are gradually starting to see that warming trend take place. I know I'm waffling on. I hope you're not bored with my rambling on, but basically this is one of those kind of opportunities to just chat away, answer some questions, give shout outs, and kind of just speak with what's on my mind, kind of an impromptu, non-script. Sometimes I muck up the lines. Sometimes, I get it right. But look at these temperature anomalies here from across the planet. Quite standout area here. Parts of Saudi Arabia. Massive thank you to Lindsay, by the way, for this. The super thanks as well. She is saying hello from her work in sunny Dingwall. Not so sunny at the minute, obviously. But hope work is going well for you, and I'll see you shortly. All being well. But you can see here that we've got quite a cold, subcontinent. So India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Indo-Western portions of China. Much of Australia has been quite chilly, and this is obviously now heading into the early portions of summer. This is the final month of spring down in the southern hemisphere, of course, and temperatures have been somewhat subdued. Moving across the Pacific into South America, largely warmer than normal across parts of Brazil, slightly below average across northern Argentina, and then without any real surprise, Peru is seeing colder than average due to that La Nina nearby. We've got a colder than average Florida, but the majority, and northeast below average, the majority of the United States and Canada has been largely warmer than average. Up into Greenland, firmly warmer than average. We've had a strong block over Greenland, hence why we've had the cold in the western areas of Europe. Some coastal areas not dropping below freezing at night on the west coast of Greenland, so pretty warm here. Far northeastern portions of Russia has been actually colder than average. The majority of Russia has been warmer than average. Kazakhstan's been warmer than average. the majority of Europe has been warmer than average so far this month. So Richard's just saying, just sent you a video at 4 p.m. today. Villages still being dug out in the North York Moors, says Richard. So thanks very much, Richard. I'll try and share that video. Let's have a quick look. Look at this. This is a cracking photograph here. This has obviously just been shared on Highland Weather. So this is in the Carbridge area. I'm assuming Lee took this photograph of Carbridge back a couple of days ago. So yeah, fantastic scenes. Let's go on the Highland Weather page on Facebook. I highly recommend it, by the way. Even if you're not up here, Lee provides some fantastic updates on the area, great videos he shares, great photographs as well. He provides some kind of daily update videos as well, where he's talking about the conditions, and yep, he does a fantastic job. Great following Lee has got on Facebook, so I highly recommend. Also highly recommend Braemar, Ballard and D-side and Donside Weather. Chris Booth's page, also some fantastic information. So I recommend those two Facebook pages if you're interested in cold and snow and Highland stuff. Yep. And minus 18 Celsius last night. Forest Hollow, deep snow between Nethy Bridge and Lynbreck Croft. Coldest November night in years. But let me just see here. So this is the video sent by Richard. If I can pull that up. So yeah, look at the big drifts. Big time drifts. I tell you what, you don't often see that this early in the season. So pretty interesting stuff. Thanks very much, Richard, for sharing that with us. And I hope you don't mind me sharing it with everybody else here in the stream. We've got 60 concurrent viewers at the moment. Greatly appreciate it if you could hit that like button and also hit that subscribe button if you are interested in all things weather, forecasts, reports, both locally as well as globally. So, there is certainly a lot of things going on at this minute in time. So, in terms of cold, we will look at the Vietnamese floods in a little second or two here, but we do have a fairly cold Europe, it has to be said. Now, we are going to see cold lingering through the rest of this weekend and into the early portions of next week across the UK and Ireland, but we will eventually, towards the second half of next week, if memory serves me correctly, we are going to start to pick up more of a southwesterly, introducing warmer air back into the pattern yet again. We may see a couple of deep areas of low pressure starting off tomorrow. Wet and windy conditions. City Andy, good evening to yourself. Sorry I'm late. Just been watching City. Not a problem, my friend, and thank you very much for taking the time out to tune in this evening. So, yep, these were the temperatures this morning. A chilly old Europe, it has to be said. Down into France, even the Paris area, a fairly cold temperature, well below freezing. Paris can be a pretty chilly place actually in the winter time. I think folks tend to forget that. Don't think there's been any snow reported in the Paris area, if I'm right in saying. But you can see here down into the Bavaria region, the Alpine region of Central Europe, but also up into the north of Scandinavia. Now seeing temperatures dropping into the minus 30s. These were the temperatures. These are the minimums this morning. So we're talking about minus 30, minus 31.5. Am I seeing any minus 32s? I thought I did see one earlier, but I'm not necessarily seeing it. But these were the minimums, well into the minus 20s, quite a few minus 30s showing up. These are the current temperatures in the north of Scandinavia. So again, we're back into that minus 30. What was the maximum actually out of interest? So we're seeing temperatures minus 29 Celsius for a maximum today. Obviously, we're in a part of the world now that is literally not seeing any daylight now. So it's hard to see the temperatures recover, especially when you've got a cold air mass in place. But yeah, maximums -28, -29 Celsius. And temperatures are now creeping back into the low 30s below. Are we going to see -40 this week? That is going to be an interesting one, and we'll monitor this part of the world over the next wee while. Good evening to Ewan. Is it? Sorry, I always mess up these pronunciations. Eugene, Ewan, Doyle. I'll stick to Doyle 7972. I'm sorry about that. Good evening to yourself from Kildare, beautiful part of the world. And did I say hello to Turbo Stream? If I haven't, good evening to yourself. Good to see you tuning in on this Saturday evening. So remember, folks, next Sunday night is going to be the release of the 2025-26 winter forecast. It is the 16th consecutive forecast for winter. I'm asking myself the question, when am I going to maybe stop doing these winter forecasts, especially if I get it wrong and I get a battering on social media. But yeah, this is going to be the 16th consecutive winter forecast, and that will get released next Sunday at 4 p.m. So, yep, chilly enough across Europe this evening. We are seeing snowfall. So these are the current temperatures across Europe. Again, the core of cold is over central areas of Europe. Chilly actually across parts of Iberia. Let's quickly look at the temperature anomalies for Europe. So this is as it stands through the 22nd. Still warmer than average across the bulk of Europe here, because we did get off to a very mild start. The last 3 days, however, has looked like this, and that is a substantial November cold spell across Western Europe. Incidentally, stark contrast, Southeastern Europe has been very mild, with I believe even tropical nights in parts of Greece, possibly Turkey as well. Over the last 5 days, this is how the temperature anomalies have looked. So again, you're talking a good 6, 7, 8 Celsius below average widely, with a core of cold over northern portions of Norway, Sweden and Finland. Over the last 7 days, this is how things have looked across the continent as well. So it has been a chilly spell, and I suppose it's easy to kind of forget how warm the first half of this month has been. Looking at temperatures, minimum temperatures, this is going to be more from a global perspective. And quite often I do actually miss Iceland, and I do apologise about that. It annoys me sometimes because I think I want to try and include Iceland a bit more, because we do have folks that tune into the channel from Iceland. And, all being well, Lindsay and I are flying over to New York in January, and we're going via Iceland. I'm quite excited about that, because I stopped off with my late mum. I stopped off back in 2004. We stopped off at the Blue Lagoon, and then we flew on to Minneapolis for a 3-day shopping trip. This was back at the end of November 2004, and we stopped off in Iceland. And I would love to spend more time there. It really is a spectacular part of the world. But look at these temperatures here then. So we're looking at over towards Eastern Asia, and it's not that far off the first -50s. So you can see here -47 Celsius here, widespread upper 30s below, into the low to mid -40s. And obviously, snow cover is gaining expansion across the northern hemisphere as well. If I can try and find the snow depth, the latest snow depth. No, I've got too many tabs opened up. That is the problem. I've got too many tabs opened up. I'm going to bring up the right chart. So this is the current snow cover across the hemisphere. And obviously, we've still got a lack of snow cover, if you notice, over European Russia, especially southern portions of Western Russia. Scandinavia is looking pretty covered now, even the northern half of the UK, albeit now we're starting to melt that snow. Much of Canada is now, under a blanket of snow cover as well. United States, still a lack of snow cover, but we'll wait and see. We may start to see colder air. We might see the snow begin to expand across the lower 48 as we progress into the month of December. As you would expect, there is rumblings of an Arctic outbreak in the United States as we move into the month of December. Good evening to Braemar, Ballard and D-side and Donside weather. Probably messed that up. Sorry about that, Chris. But good evening to yourself, my friend. I was saying to folks to check out your page on Facebook. You provide some fantastic information, both the temperatures, some great images of the snow. Have you still got, I'm assuming you've still got snow, Chris, over in the Braemar area and, Crathy and all those kind of fantastic places in the D-side area. Let me know, my friend, if you've still got a decent amount of snow, because we've been seeing a bit of a recovery in the temperature. We've been seeing snow melt taking place. But I had pulled up there, this is Europe snow cover, and you can see that the majority of Scandinavia is now covered in snow. The northern half of the British Isles, we're seeing snow. Don't think we've seen really much in the way of snow in Glasgow, for example. Edinburgh, don't think Inverness really seen much in the way of snow yet. We've seen a little bit here, just 14 miles to the north. Got some snow over parts of the northwestern side of the Balkans, into the Alpine region, parts of central France, probably over higher ground. I must admit, northern portions of Iberia as well. We've got some snow-covered ground as well, and much of Iceland, I think, is covered in snow as well here. So, yep. Lambsfield, good evening to yourself. Hi, Mark. Temps dropping here in Pendrin, Brecon Beacons tonight. Reached 8 degrees today, down to 3.5 Celsius now. Good evening to yourself, my friend. Thanks for tuning in. Also, thanks for leaving a little comment there as well. Good evening to James Hope, 8599. Good evening to yourself. Been a lot of concern about the PV. What are your thoughts on the current situation? Yeah, I think it's easy to jump on the fact that, there might be a couple of caveats to this SSW, the not overly conducive coupling between stratosphere and troposphere. One person that I think knows a lot more than I do, Egil on, I don't know if that's the right pronunciation, but Egil on Twitter mentioning about the fact that at this time of the year, sometimes you don't want to have, I guess it's a wee bit like snow and cold early in the winter. Sometimes you don't want to have it too much in the early portions of the winter, because that can quite often lead to, a milder back half the winter. Perhaps say you get to Christmas and New Year, and it's all of a sudden you start to see the polar vortex becoming stronger, and then that leads into a milder, February, for example. The last couple of years, February stung me in terms of, I thought last year, for example, there would be an SSW perhaps during the winter, the midwinter period, leading to something colder in the month of February. It turned out to be quite the opposite of that, in fact, in the month of February last year. So that's something that I need to take into consideration, is the behaviour of the polar vortex. According to the ECMWF anyway, it looks as if the mean zonal wind will recover after it kind of drops out close to the zero, so essentially no westerly wind. What impact that has on the troposphere is going to be interesting. How much of a recovery do we see in the polar vortex as we progress through the month of December, or do we see more waves of warming? Now, somebody also mentioned the fact that Mann-Julian oscillation being in the West Pacific, if it's strong, that then can lead to more blows, more punches, so to speak, on the polar vortex, and leading to more warming and weakening events through the month of December. So that's what we're kind of hoping for. If what I'm reading is correct, and obviously nobody truly knows, but if what I'm reading is correct with this Mann-Julian oscillation phase 7, which is is favourable for blocking, but it looks as if the MJO Phase 7 combined with the stratospheric polar vortex, they're kind of working against each other at the minute here. I think that stratospheric situation is perhaps impeding the influence of the MJO Phase 7, and in turn the MJO Phase 7 could be impeding what's going on above, up in the stratosphere as well. So I think that's what's going on at the minute here. I'm continuing to kind of learn myself. I don't claim to know everything, but we'll wait and see what happens. I know I want to get into a couple of aspects that are taking place globally, but let's have a quick look at the polar vortex off the GFS, because I know that's what people are wanting, and I'm trying to provide what folks want to see. So let's have a quick look at the GFS extended here. Remember to hit that like button, folks, and also remember to hit that subscribe button if you are enjoying the content here on the channel. Try to keep it as varied as possible, not just looking at UK, Ireland, Europe, but globally, obviously, hence why we've got this global weather report. So, yes, let me see. So, very massive thank you to Braemar, Ballard, and D-Side and Donside Weather. Thank you very much for your super thanks and your kind support, my friend. That is very, very generous of you indeed. So yeah, what am I talking about here? Stratosphere. So let's see what the latest run of the GFS ensemble is showing. Let's look at the Northern Hemispheric view. So back to the current situation. So we've got this warming showing up at the moment here. Two areas of cold. One in the Northeast Atlantic. And remember, sometimes there is a bit of reflection of the cold versus the warm pockets. Sometimes the atmosphere underneath, i.e. the troposphere, can reflect what is going on up in the stratosphere here. Again, it's all about that complex interplay between the coupling of both layers of the atmosphere. Remember, they can be separate. Stratosphere affects the troposphere. Troposphere affects the stratosphere. What goes on underneath? When you expand the troposphere with high pressure, for example, you're actually contracting the stratosphere. That then causes it to warm up. People are asking, what actually is a stratospheric warming? It's when you've got influences from underneath, say waves that are underneath within the troposphere that then create a frictional effect in the stratosphere above it here. Complex stuff. Very complex, and it is easy for people to jump on things without actually truly understanding. I don't truly understand it myself, but I'm trying to learn and then in turn trying to show it. So there's the strong warming here. This is that first deceleration of winds at 10 millibars around about the 25th of November. So this is just 2 days away, 3 days away. There's the first burst of warming showing up. Notice how cold the air mass is over the top of Russia at this point in time. Then as we play, remember there's two little surges of warmth that then decelerates the wind close to zero, and then there's a recovery. There's this second burst of warming showing up according to the JFS ensemble. Again, very cold air off the pole over the Eurasian landmass here. Then play through, you notice here that the cold pool tries to reposition back over the top of the pole again here. You can see more warming showing up on the outer edge of this vortex that is sitting essentially just to the south of Svalbard, essentially between Iceland and Svalbard. We've got the core of the polar vortex at 10 millibars here. Continue to play through. You can see a bit of a recovery showing up here. What influences does this have 2-3 weeks down the road? That is the question that we don't know yet, and it'll be very fascinating to see how much influence this has. Good evening to Sammy 1973. We've got quite a few folks tuning in from abroad. Sammy is in Denmark. Good evening and thanks for tuning in to tonight's live stream. 102 concurrent viewers, so there is plenty tuning in. So a massive thank you to everybody for your fantastic support. Remember the live stream special one next week, next Sunday at 4 p.m, the release of the 2025-26 winter forecast. So it will be a big one next week. So there's the two little This is the mean zonal wind according to the ECMWF. We get this drop off close to zero, but not quite. Then a slight bounce up between 1 to 5. I think this is meters per second, or meters per second. Then we see this secondary wave that I just showed you in the GFS ensemble. It comes in from the Asian side across the top over towards North America here. It looks as if the mean of the ECMWF model has those winds surrounding the PV dropping to around zero. Whether it goes below zero or not, it looks as if it's going to be right on that line. Then you notice here that we have a relatively sharp recovery, which may be a bit of a concern that all this means there's less influence in the troposphere. But then we've got the Mann-Julian oscillation phase 7. So yeah, are the two working against each other or with each other? That is something I just simply do not know at this minute in time. So that is that. Tune in on Monday morning, or Monday evening, should I say. I'm going to be looking at this and also looking at the longer term modelling with regards to, temperatures. We've got this likely mild beginning to the month of December. Do we have something colder further down the road in the models? We'll look at that in the Monday European Outlook, so stay tuned for that. But anyway, I have to move on because we're almost at an hour and I've not even talked about what I actually wanted to show. So, Vietnamese floods had a very difficult time in recent times, and it looks as if this is an ongoing problem. I think the MJO has something to do with this. We've just seen excessive rainfall through October, through November, and I think with that enhanced convection over the far east, southeast of Asia, into the West Pacific, this has been enhancing the rains in this part of the world. So check out this video here. There's been record rainfall. There's been quite significant flooding as a consequence of that. Check this video out here and it'll give me a chance to get my breath back.
Now, catastrophic flooding continues across central Vietnam, where at least 41 people have been killed and tens of thousands forced from their homes. And days of relentless rain have submerged entire neighborhoods, triggered deadly landslides and crippled transport links, and more heavy rain is forecast. Rescuers spent the day pulling stranded residents from rooftops as floodwaters swallowed streets and homes across 6 provinces. Popular coastal destinations like Nha Trang were almost unrecognizable, with entire city blocks underwater and cars submerged. Business owners said they were powerless as water rose rapidly. One restaurant owner in Nha Trang reported nearly 1 meter of flooding in his shops, while staff were dealing with 2 meters of water inside their homes. State media showed rescue crews in boats smashing through windows and cutting open roofs in Gia Lai and Dak La to reach people trapped by the fast-moving floods. Vietnam's Environment Ministry has said that more than 52,000 houses are flooded. Nearly 62,000 people have been evacuated, and 1 million customers were left without power. Now, several major roads remain blocked by landslides, complicating rescue operations. Landslides around the Highland tourist city of Dalat have also proven deadly, with some areas receiving as much as 600 millimeters of rain in just a few days. Hotels report that almost all tourists have cancelled their stays, and most routes into the city are now closed. Rail services between northern and southern Vietnam were suspended, leaving travelers stranded as floodwaters rose along key lines. Deputy Prime Minister Ho Quoc Dung has ordered the army, police, and emergency forces to carry out large-scale evacuations in 3 of the hardest-hit provinces. In Quang Nguyen, rescuers delivered food and water to flooded hospitals where doctors and patients had survived for days on instant noodles. Now, rivers across the region have surged to record.
I just want to say good evening to Inverness, Scotland, 4478. Good evening to Lambsfield. So Lambsfield saying this is something so unusual though, Mark. Interesting. Yeah, interesting how... so it would be the earliest major SSW if we did see a reversal in the mean zonal wind, which is questionable. It would be the earliest since 1968. But when I look back at an AI overview, it suggests that there was a late November 2000 warming, and remember we had an epic Christmas of snow and cold 2000 into 2001, and that followed on from either a significant weakening or an actual SSW. But a little bit of confliction when it comes to that one, but certainly, according to AI, like I say, there was a warming that took place in stratosphere back in 2000, and we know what followed that because we had a significant spell of snow and cold. But good to see folks tune in. I'll finish off this video and then we've got a cyclone that's affecting northern Australia to look at in a little second here.
Including the Bar River in Daplak and the Sai River in Kanhua. Now, officials warn conditions can worsen with already saturated ground unable to absorb more rain. The floods follow a series of deadly landslides on mountain passes. At Kanle, a massive collapse buried a passenger bus, killing 6 people and injuring 19. Rescue teams struggled.
Look at that flooding. That is absolutely crazy. Well, you think the amount of damage is going to be caused from that as well over such a huge area. So really our thoughts and our prayers are with the people down across in Vietnam. Good evening to Atmospheric Record. Did we have a major SSW in 09-10 winter? That is actually a very good question because I'm not 100% sure. Did we see one? I'm sure Paul or Richard could answer that question for me right here in the comments. So that's the thing. I don't claim to know it all. There's a part of me that thinks yes, but there's also a part of me that questions whether we did or not. So yeah, you get the general idea with regards to the Vietnamese floods here. And again, according to we did see a second wettest 24-hour period globally. I think it was in the end of October where we had 1,500 millimeters of rainfall within a 24-hour period. That was only beaten by a tropical system, and this, by the way, is the effects of a lingering effects of a tropical system, as well as, I believe anyway, the MJO in this part of the world. Remember, this region of the world, Indonesia, Vietnam, Southeast Asia, heavily influenced by the MJO. They're directly influenced by the downward branch of the MJO, which tends to be heat wave conditions and dryness. But when you've got that active pulse over this part of the world, it enhances the tropical rainfall. It's already warm, it's already wet, but the MJO enhances it. So, while we focus on the MJO, these folks, it affects the rainfall pattern essentially while we're looking at it from the downstream influence, the indirect influence of the MJO. But it's quite interesting when you look at this and think that, what's happening in Vietnam can be influencing our weather as well, due to the Rossby wave breaking and progression and whatnot. Interesting here, this is a tweet from Terry Goose based in Canada. Snow depth of 80 centimetres in Tromsø, Norway, highest in November since 1995. So we're seeing some epic snow amounts in Tromsø in Norway over the last couple of days. Like I said, we're seeing the coldest temperatures in Scandinavia, also in eastern portions of Russia as well, where we're getting ever closer to that first minus 50 of the season. Like I said, there was a cyclone affecting northern portions of Australia. Let's watch this. This is a pretty quick video, so it doesn't take that long. But I think this is highly unusual for the month of November to see a cyclone, especially a powerful cyclone, affect the north of Australia. Check this out.
Nervous night in Darwin as severe tropical cyclone Fina impacts the city. We're live now to Matt Cunningham. Matt, what's the advice for residents tonight?
Well, they've been advised to stay indoors. We really are feeling the impact now of severe tropical cyclone Fina, a Category 3 system that is moving right past the coast of Darwin as we speak. We've seen winds of up to 200 kilometres of wind gust.
Sorry, I've just noticed here a message from Paul saying, please say hello to Mason. So good evening to Mason. Thanks for tuning in. I do apologise, by the way, if I'm missing folks on the stream because I'm looking at it off my phone and it's not ideal. But hello to everybody, and if I have missed anybody out, I do sincerely apologise. But hello to Mason. Thank you very much for tuning in, Mason.
At that level, if you have a look at some of this vision, there are trees that are coming down right across the city, power lines down as well. There are many suburbs now that are without power. We are expecting these cyclonic conditions to continue for at least a couple of hours. They picked up really around about 7 o'clock local time, which is about 45 minutes to an hour ago, and that coincided with really when nightfall arrived. So it's a pretty serious situation at the moment. You can probably hear the wind coming through the windows behind me. We are really expecting this system to continue impacting Darwin for at least the next couple of hours. So the advice from authorities is to stay home. A lot of people have already gone to cyclone shelters. Emergency services urging people just not to go out on the roads, really under any circumstances. This is a serious situation now. People being told to stay indoors, which is what most people are doing, as we really are feeling the full brunt of this severe tropical cyclone right now.
Certainly so, Matt. It's going to be a nervous night.
So yeah, I just want to very quickly check out, if I can, back perch weather. Just trying to see if there was anything that I was wanting to show. There always is something that I want to show and then I end up forgetting to do it. But the back perch weather provides some quite interesting stuff with regards to the tropics. So like I said, be sure to tune into the European outlooks this upcoming work week, because there is going to be a lot more on the longer term stuff, including the month of December as well. We could also see some fairly deep areas of low pressure over the course of the next couple of weeks or so. So it's certainly very interesting weather going on. Confirmed metrics show a decline at internet connectivity. Blah blah blah. I thought that was actually something more interesting than that. But just trying to see here. This is some of the conditions. This is in Darwin, by the way, Northern Territories. So yeah, pretty nasty stuff. And this is the beginning of the cyclone season down in the southern hemisphere. As things start to become quieter up here in the northern hemisphere, we switch our attention down to the southern hemisphere at this time of the year. So Paul just saying there that Mason tuning in. He's 8 years of age. So good evening to Mason, and thank you for watching. Hope you're enjoying what you're seeing, Mason. And if you're interested in weather, it is a very fascinating subject to get into, and I highly recommend it, Mason. There is so many things that we can look at, some exciting weather to get interested in, and whatever and whatnot. But Cyclone Finna exceeded her forecast and attained Category 2 strength right before making her second landfall in Australia. This one over the south coast of Melville Island, with winds in excess of 105 miles per hour. Finna, this is what I'm trying to get to. Finna, one of the earliest landfall in Cat 1 cyclones in recorded history for Australia, and has continued intensifying over the last several hours in spite of prolonged land interaction. So yes, interesting things going on down in northern Australia. So I hope you've enjoyed the live stream tonight. Like I said already 20 times over, exciting live stream coming up next week. The Global Weather Report will be talking about the winter forecast of 25-26. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Saturday and your weekend. Stay safe. There will be no video tomorrow. I'm going to take a couple of weekends where you've got one day off, because the tropics are essentially over in the northern hemisphere. So I'm going to take a little bit of a breather, take one day off, but there will still be content 7 days a week. The live streams will be continuing as well, and you know, lots going on. So keep it right here on this channel. Let me just see here if there's anybody that I have. For some reason, the live chat has disappeared. So, yeah, massive thank you to our moderators, Lindsay, tuning in from work in Dingwall, to Paul James, and also to Sync Splint. Thank you to everybody for tuning in this evening. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks to the folks that have tuned in from the United States, from Denmark, perhaps other places as well around. We've obviously got, you know, UK and Ireland viewers on a regular basis. Massive thank you. And if you're new to the channel, a warm welcome. I hope you're enjoying it. And hit that subscribe button, and also leave a like before you leave today's stream as well. So thank you to everybody. Take care, and I'll see you on Monday with the European Outlook. Bye-bye.